The final legal door slammed shut with the quiet procedural finality that only the Supreme Court can muster. A one-sentence order, devoid of explanation, denied certiorari in a case few Americans had followed, yet one that carried profound personal and political consequences for one of the most enigmatic figures in modern American life, Melania Trump. For the former First Lady, this was not a matter of presidential immunity or election law. It was a deeply personal loss, a definitive end to a years-long, fiercely private legal battle to control a lucrative business asset entirely separate from the Trump family empire. Her loss was absolute, and her reaction, according to aides privy to her inner circle, was a stony, resolute silence that spoke volumes. Within hours of the court's decision, a terse two-line statement was issued by her office, expressing disappointment and noting that she would be focusing on her family and private endeavors. It was the phrase private endeavors, vague and deliberately open-ended, that immediately set off a frenzied guessing game across Washington, New York, and international capitals. Analysts and political operatives who had long dismissed Melania Trump as a reluctant peripheral player in her husband's turbulent universe are now urgently recalibrating their assessments. The Supreme Court's denial strips away a key pillar of her independent financial planning, forcing a sudden and unexpected pivot. This legal conclusion arrives at a moment of maximum political tension as Donald Trump secures the Republican nomination for president while concurrently facing unprecedented criminal trials. The question of what role, if any, Melania will play in the coming campaign has been a persistent mystery. This legal and financial shockwave now makes that question not just politically salient, but personally urgent for her. Her next act is no longer a matter of speculative cocktail party chatter. It is a necessary, immediate calculation with potential ripple effects for the election, the Trump family dynamics, and her own carefully guarded legacy. The scramble to decode her intentions is underway, and the early intelligence suggests a strategy far more complex and autonomous than previously assumed. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must first appreciate the deliberate architecture of Melania Trump's post-White House life. Since leaving Washington on January 20th, 2021, she has cultivated an existence of pronounced seclusion primarily at Mar-a-Lago, but with significant stretches spent in New York and at Trump National Golf Club, Bedminster. Her public appearances have been sparse, meticulously curated, and almost entirely divorced from the rally-centric fervor of her husband's political base. She launched a controversial NFT venture, a move widely mocked, but which demonstrated a clear intent to monetize her brand independently. More significantly, she has maintained a staff and office operation functionally separate from Donald Trump's political machine, a rarity in a family known for its opaque entanglement of personal, business, and political interests. This separation was not accidental. It was a firewall. Her legal battle, now conclusively lost, was emblematic of this drive for autonomy. The case centered on a lucrative licensing agreement and brand management firm she had built in the years before the 2016 campaign, an asset she fought to retain sole control of amid various financial pressures and challenges. While the specific details remain sealed under confidentiality agreements, sources familiar with the matter describe it as her signature commercial vehicle, an enterprise whose value was intrinsically tied to her name and image, distinct from the Trump organization. The legal fight was a draining, expensive saga waged behind closed doors in arbitration and lower courts. Her team argued passionately for her exclusive rights, framing it as a matter of contractual integrity and personal enterprise. The Supreme Court's refusal to hear her final appeal means a lower court's adverse ruling stands, effectively ceding control and a significant portion of the asset's future revenues. This legal defeat arrives amid a familial and political landscape that is itself undergoing seismic shifts. Donald Trump's campaign is a behemoth, yet it is also a vessel of perpetual crisis, consumed by his legal defenses and a rhetoric of grievance that Melania has notably never echoed. Their son, Barron, is now of college age, a milestone that traditionally marks a new chapter for any parent. Sources close to the family suggest Melania's primary focus in recent years has been her son's well-being and privacy, a task she has pursued with ferocious determination. with Barron's impending departure for university, a key tether to a fixed domestic routine is loosening. The legal loss, therefore, coincides with a natural inflection point in her personal life, forcing a convergence of financial necessity and newfound personal latitude. The insulated world she has constructed is changing by court order and by life's calendar. Historically, the role of a former First Lady seeking a return to the White House is one of supportive, if sometimes reluctant, partnership. The models of Hillary Clinton or Lady Bird Johnson loom large. Melania Trump has shattered every precedent of that role from the outset. Her absence from the campaign trail in 2022 was conspicuous. Her distancing from the January 6th events was made clear by her absence from the Stop the Steal rally and her later chillingly curated photo op at a military hospital on that fateful day. She did not participate in her husband's 2024 campaign launch at Mar-a-Lago, an event held in her own home. This pattern of absence is a language in itself, a semiotics of detachment that political analysts have struggled to interpret. Is it disdain for the political process, a strategic calculation to preserve a modicum of dignity amid chaos, or simply the preference of a profoundly private individual? The answers are now critical. The internal dynamics of Trump's inner circle add another layer of complexity. With the former president's legal battles commanding astronomical sums and his political operation in constant fundraising mode, the financial pressures within the broader Trump ecosystem are acute. Melania's separate legal fight and its now certain unfavorable financial outcome remove a potential source of independent capital. Furthermore, her perceived ambivalence has, according to two former campaign advisors, been a source of quiet frustration for some of Donald Trump's more politically focused aides, who crave the legitimizing, softening presence a spouse can provide. However, other factions, particularly those aligned with the firebrand populist base, view her distance as an asset, seeing her as above the political fray, an untainted figure whose occasional appearances can be deployed for maximum, rare impact. This internal debate about her utility is now colliding with her personal necessity. Internationally, the gaze is equally intense. Foreign diplomats, intelligence agencies, and business leaders have long parsed Melania Trump's actions for clues about the former president's state of mind and the stability of his potential second administration. In European capitals, her European background and multilingual abilities fostered a belief, however faint, in a moderating cosmopolitan influence, a belief not necessarily supported by her public record. Her near-total withdrawal from public life since 2021 has made that analysis nearly impossible. The Supreme Court news, however, filtered through diplomatic cables this week, is being examined not as an American legal curiosity, but as a potential catalyst. The question in Berlin, Paris, and London is whether this financial and legal pressure forces her into a more active, visible campaigning role to support the family enterprise, or whether it drives her further into a private shell, a senior European diplomat stationed in Washington remarked under condition of anonymity. The consequences of her next move are multifaceted. On a purely political level, a decision by Melania to embark on a sustained campaign tour would be a tectonic shift in the 2024 race. Her polling, while polarized, shows significant reserves of respect among Republican women and suburban voters who remain skeptical of her husband's temperament. Her story, an immigrant success narrative, portrayed as one of grace under relentless scrutiny, resonates in ways Donald Trump's does not. Campaign advisors acknowledge this in private. A senior strategist for the Trump super PAC, who spoke on Background, admitted she is the single most powerful validator he has, precisely because she uses it so sparingly. If she were to fully embrace the trail, it would change the media narrative overnight. It would be a Lady Macbeth steps onto the battlefield moment, for better or worse. The inverse is also true. Continued absence would become an increasingly loud story in its own right. Yet the personal and familial consequences may outweigh the political. Insiders describe a marital relationship that is a partnership of mutual, if often separate, interests, bound by loyalty, shared experience of persecution, and an understanding of brand value. The loss of this legal case represents a diminution of Melania's independent financial footing within that partnership. This alters the internal balance of power, however subtly. Furthermore, her relationship with other Trump adult children, particularly Ivanka, who has also stepped back from politics, is described by those familiar with the family as cordial but distant. A move by Melania to re-engage publicly could be seen as encroaching on established territories within the family business and political operation. Every action is weighed within this intricate competitive ecosystem. Expert analysis points to a woman at a crossroads with limited and largely unappealing options. Dr. Lindsay Rogers, a political historian specializing in first ladies at the University of Virginia, explains, Melania Trump has meticulously built a persona of remote, inscrutable control. This legal defeat is a public blow to that narrative of autonomy. Her choices now are to either lean into the political role to rebuild capital within the family enterprise or to double down on privacy and forge a new commercial path in the wake of this loss. The latter is fraught with difficulty. Her brand is inextricably linked to his for all her efforts. A luxury lifestyle venture or fashion line launched now would be immediately politicized, its every success or failure framed as a referendum on the Trump name. Insiders within her small, loyal team suggest a third path is being mapped. A highly controlled thematic reemergence that serves both personal brand rehabilitation and provides selective, powerful support to the campaign. This would not involve rallies, but could involve a handful of high-profile, soft-focus media appearances focusing on themes of resilience or the importance of the office of the First Lady, deliberately avoiding the fray of partisan politics. It might also involve a new commercial venture, launched swiftly to demonstrate financial and personal momentum, perhaps in the realm of digital art, high-end wellness, or curated philanthropy. The goal, says a person who has advised her on communications, is to reaffirm her sovereignty, to show that the court's no is not a full stop, but a comma. The narrative must be one of elegant pivot, not forced retreat. The global impact of such a personal pivot should not be underestimated. In nations with authoritarian tendencies or strongman rulers, the dynamics of political families are studied obsessively. A visible, empowered Melania Trump at her husband's side during a potential second term would be interpreted as a consolidation of clan power, a signal that the inner circle is closed and familial loyalty is paramount. Conversely, her continued absence would feed narratives of discord or weakness, potentially emboldening both foreign adversaries and domestic critics. Her image, that of poised, impenetrable silence, has a strange global currency. From Moscow to Riyadh, she is seen as a unique asset, glamorous, detached, seemingly above the mess, notes Klaus Schmidt, a Berlin-based analyst of transatlantic relations. Any change in that posture is a data point in their calculus about Trump's stability and focus. Looking to the immediate future, several scenarios are plausible. The first, and perhaps most anticipated by the political class, is the strategic surge. In this scenario, Melania appears alongside Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, delivering a brief scripted speech that emphasizes unity, strength, and her belief in his leadership. This would be followed by a limited schedule of fundraisers and interviews in key swing states, targeting demographics where her appeal is strongest. The second scenario is the commercial reboot. Within weeks, a new business initiative is announced, leveraging her name and aesthetic deliberately positioned in an apolitical space like art curation or children's wellness, accompanied by a glossy magazine profile where she addresses her resilience in the face of legal setbacks, obliquely referencing the Supreme Court loss as a challenge overcome. A third, darker scenario is the fortified withdrawal. This path sees her retrenching further, perhaps spending extended periods outside the United States in her native Slovenia or in other European locales, effectively sitting out the election cycle. This would be a monumental story, a silent scream that would dominate political coverage for weeks and raise crippling questions about the state of the Trump marriage and home life. While considered less likely, the sheer disruptive power of this option gives it a perverse viability. In a media environment where Trump dominates through constant motion, Her absolute stillness could become the ultimate power play. Each of these paths carries profound risks, not just for the campaign, but for her personal brand, which is her primary currency. The risks of miscalculation are severe. If she chooses to campaign and is met with apathy or protest, it shatters the aura of coveted, exclusive appeal she has cultivated. If her commercial venture falters, it becomes a symbol of her diminished prospects post-Supreme Court. If she withdraws completely, she cedes all influence and risks being permanently marginalized within the Trump empire, especially if a second term brings new players and power centers to the fore. There is also the unquantifiable risk to her son, Barron, whose privacy she has guarded like a lioness. Any move that thrusts her further into the spotlight inevitably draws him closer to its glare, an outcome she has fought for years to prevent. This maternal calculus may be the most decisive factor of all. What happens next will likely unfold in stages, parsed by a press corps hungry for any signal. Her attendance or lack thereof at upcoming Trump properties' social events will be scrutinized. Her name on any new business filings will trigger instant analysis. The tone and subject of any social media post from her accounts will be decoded like a diplomatic cipher. The Trump campaign, for its part, is preparing for all contingencies. We have event schedules with her and without her, the super PAC strategist confided. The media plans are bifurcated. She is the ultimate variable. This operational duality underscores her unique position. She is both integral and peripheral, a ghost in the machine whose sudden materialization could change its very function. The deeper impact of this saga extends beyond one woman's career choices. It touches on the evolving, fraught nature of political partnership in an age of hyper-personalized politics and relentless commodification. Melania Trump represents a stark modern extreme, a first lady who treated the role not as a sacred trust but as a contract with limited duties, who prioritized brand management and personal boundaries above public expectation. Her current dilemma lays bare the limits of that approach when faced with the inexorable pressures of law, finance, and familial politics. She sought to build a wall around herself, but the realities of her chosen life have proven that no wall is high enough. In the corridors of Washington and the conference rooms of Manhattan, the scrambling continues. Opposition researchers are digging into every facet of the lost legal case, seeking new angles. Political consultants are running focus groups, testing her various potential messages. Editorial boards are preparing takes for whichever path she chooses. Yet, at the center of this maelstrom, Melania Trump remains for now silent. That silence is a vacuum, and in politics and media, nature abhors a vacuum. It will be filled with speculation, strategy, and noise. But the woman who has mastered the power of saying nothing now faces the most consequential decision of her post-White House life. The Supreme Court said no. Her next act is the only answer that matters, and the world, for once, is watching her, waiting for a cue it has spent years failing to interpret. The ultimate power may lie not in what she does, but in the prolonged, agonizing anticipation of it. A final, masterful lesson in control taught by a woman who has redefined the role she never seemed to want.